I start today, I want to say that my team and I are in supercharge mode creating our latest film, Screenagers Generation AI. So after this new episode, we'll be running encore episodes this summer. But come September, when the film launches, I'll be back in full swing with brand new episodes. And by the way, to learn more about the new film, head to screenagersmovie.com. Hello, I'm Delaney Ruston, primary care physician and filmmaker and creator with Lisa Tabb of the 4 Screenagers movies, and this is Parenting in the Screen Age, a show about discovering the best ways to help our youth and ourselves navigate our rapidly changing digital world. I'm incredibly excited about our guest today and our topic. I talk with the wonderful tech journalist Manoush Zomorodi, host of the TED Radio Hour, about her new book, which is called Body Electric. It explores why sitting for long stretches is bad for our health and what we can do about it. The book is excellent, and today Manoush shares many great insights. Manoush is a real change maker, and now she's focused on starting a movement to make getting up periodically from our screens much more the norm. She's a mom, and our talk includes effective ways to discuss movement with youth that won't get the usual eye rolls. And we even share the things that we personally do at times regarding movement that embarrasses our kids, and why it's all for the good. Let's get started. Manoush, it is wonderful to have you on the show today.
Delaney, I am so delighted to be here. I am a big fan of the show. I am honored to be talking to you and amongst all the amazing guests that you have on this place. Where I appreciate it because it's the right mix of science, but also empathetic parenting that I think we all need these days.
Thank you. That means a lot to me because you, as a tech reporter, I have been following from the get-go when you had New Tech City.
Oh, that's way back.
Yeah, you reached out to all of us to say, what should I use for a new title? So you've always been inclusive, and you changed it to Note to Self. And you've had a long-standing interest in this digital world, how it impacts kids and adults. And a couple of years ago, you heard about research by Dr. Diaz at Columbia, and it really tweaked your interest. And yes. I'd love to know what the research was and why it resonated, got you thinking so much.
Okay, so let's set the context here, the scene. It's 2023. We've been through a pandemic. Everything has gone online, socializing, entertainment, work, staying in touch with family, all the rest of it. But then we come back into the world and still most of it is still online. I work remotely. I have teenagers. I have elderly parents. I spend a lot of time on a screen. And I was feeling like crap, frankly, Delaney, not a scientific term, but just described how me and like a lot of the other people I talked to, they just felt this exhaustion and they felt just so drained. And I had been reporting for years about sort of the inquiry into the connection between screens, specifically social media, and mental health, and some of the questions people have and the worries that we have. And I think we all know too much time on a screen isn't great for you. Too much time of anything isn't great for you. But to me, this felt so physical. Like I would go from typing away on my laptop, and then I would close it, and all I felt like I had energy to do was like crawl over to the couch to then scroll on my phone. And that's no way to live, right? So I was thinking about, I'm not a physician. What is going on in my body that makes me feel like I have so little energy, despite the fact that I haven't really expended much energy all day long? I'm sitting. Right. So what was going on? So hold that in your mind. That's what I'm thinking about. And then I was taking the dog out for a walk, and I heard about a study on the radio by a guy named Keith Diaz. He is a physiologist at Columbia University Medical Center. And Keith has spent his entire career trying to figure out how little the human body needs to move in order to not die an early death. So we are talking like setting the bar really low because, as we all know, we've all heard it before, sitting is the new smoking. But we're also seeing, all this sedentary habits. 3 out of 4 American adults have a chronic health condition. Many of those are preventable. We have seen in young people, type 2 diabetes has doubled in the last 20 years. And so Keith had found in his lab a formula, because that's what he didn't want to, we say like, oh, you should move. Mm-hmm. Like, well, what was that? He was like, no, people want to know like how much, where can I like get a prescription almost for it. So he had found in his lab that 5 minutes of gentle movement for every half hour during those long sedentary screen-filled hours or stretches had these outsized benefits. They drastically cut blood glucose, they cut blood pressure, they restored people's ability to focus, they were more positive, and they had more energy. And when I heard this, I was like, well, why aren't we all doing this? Like, people think they have to kill it at the gym, but if really what you're talking about is just this little bits of movement throughout the day that has this restorative effects, we should all be doing it. So I called him up and I was like, let's get the message out there. And he was actually like, Delaney, he was kind of depressed. He was like, I just don't think that our culture is set up to do something like this. I don't think we're told from the minute, we go into kindergarten that sitting and looking ahead is what a good worker looks like. And, in this day and age, we have software that tracks people's fingers to make sure they're still on a keyboard, that their cursor is still in a document. It is ingrained in us that efficiency and productivity means being seated and now looking at a screen. And he's like, I don't think we can do this. And I was like, yeah, but we have to, because we all feel terrible. And also, I've been looking at the WHO data. This is bad. We have like a serious health emergency slow rolling us. So if you found the answer, it's on you to let's get it out into the world. So we ended up combining forces to test, could people integrate movement breaks into their lives, whether that was in teachers in a classroom or busy parents at home or at work, retired people who maybe, they don't have a schedule. Their lives are very different after they leave the workforce. We wanted to test 3 doses so people could join a cohort, one where people moved 5 minutes every half hour, every hour, or every 2 hours, and then they would report back. So we weren't measuring their glucose or their blood pressure because we had 20,000 people sign up. That would be impossible. But we did have lots of self-reported, how was your mood, fatigue, regularly throughout the day. And because we wanted to test a couple things, right? Like, was this feasible? Did people have the same response or different responses if it was the gold standard every half hour versus every 2 hours? And for me, and this is what I really wanted to focus on in the book, was like, how did people do it? How did they change their daily habits? And did that have sort of a ripple effect into their schools, their home lives, their workplaces? Like, can we get to a sort of cultural tipping point where we can have this conversation about how movement has basically been engineered out of our lives? And can we bring it back?
And I just want to highlight, before we get into more of those details, how badass it is of you thinking out of the box, because you did this with the Bored and Brilliant movement, that you reached out to your NPR listeners to say, hey, join, or at that time, your podcast listeners. And at the same time, you decided to do this. Can you just explain how you were able to get NPR and Columbia together?
Yeah. So this is something, as you just noted, I love that you know this, I've been doing for like the last decade, which is, I feel like oftentimes tech seems to be racing ahead before we even know what the damage is, or maybe not damage, but change, right? And I think so often us users, like, we get rolled out an update or we download an app or something happens in our lives, and suddenly we notice we have a new daily behavior, and we notice things happening to ourselves that maybe people in the labs have not, or not even considered to ask. So in 2015, Bored and Brilliant was this idea of, okay, something I just thought, like, I realized it wasn't just me. I was like, is all the time I spend on my phone keeping me from getting bored? And is that actually a bad thing? And, being a journalist, I get to reach out to amazing people. So I talked to neuroscientists and cognitive psychologists and tried to understand, like, what happens in the brain when you get bored? How is that a gateway to mind wandering? What is mind wandering? It turns out it's crucial to original thinking and problem solving and all of these crazy things. So I learn with the listener as we talk to all the experts. And then I try to put it together so it's not in a silo. You want some science, some history. Let's put it in context, but also let's talk to normal people about how they feel. And then let's experiment and see if we can feel a little better. And maybe that helps the scientists and the scientists help us.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear so much about misinformation this day and age. But on the positive side, I think people are very curious. And there are a lot of people who, there has been good reason to question science and traditional medicine, but we're in a new era now where we can talk more and we can learn from each other. And I think this could unlock this sort of next era of research.
Yeah.
In any case, what we ended up doing then, so we called it Body Electric, and we had these 20,000 people sign up. And I can give you the data that we had afterwards. So we have to keep in mind this is self-survey, and these are people who volunteered to be part of the project. So, caveats there. However, the study has been accepted into a scientific publication, and it's about, which is really exciting.
Right. In the book, it hadn't yet been. And so that's great news. Because I even just looked last night. I'm like, anything new coming up? But yeah.
Any day. Okay.
Wonderful.
So, it's really great.
Because it's a lot of data. It's qualitative. Yes. But, that's what still can give us information. And that's fantastic that it's moving forward. Of course. Yeah.
I'm a journalist. I'm like, let's print it tomorrow. And Keith, the physiologist, is like, hang on, this takes time. Do you know how much data we collected? I need to comb through it, clean it, figure it all so.
Find the patterns. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well, getting into the data for a moment, I keep telling people as I was prepping, reading the book and prepping to talk with you today about the fact that you can exercise an hour before work, an hour afterwards, and you will still get cardiovascular longevity benefit from standing and walking, some movement every 30 minutes, or just that reality of trying to prevent long sitting periods. That said, you actually went to the lab, and without getting into too much details, can you explain the physiological benefits you personally had?
When I first called Keith and he was like, no one can do this, he was like, why don't you come up and try it yourself? So I joined his lab study. And so, I had glucose monitors and heart rate trackers and all the things attached to me all over the place. And for one day, I sat and worked on my laptop like I usually do for about 8 hours. I had a lunch break. I had a couple, bathroom breaks, but pretty much had a usual day at the office. And then another day, I would be typing away, and then his assistant would tap me on the shoulder and take me over to this treadmill in the corner where I would take a walking break. And it was set at 2 miles per hour. So Delaney, I'm a New Yorker. That's pretty slow. It's like a stroll, right?
You would have been
crazy.
Knocked over by other walkers by then.
Exactly. You got it. So I knew that I felt different at the end of the day. And I'm not going to lie, at first, the interruptions were annoying because I wasn't used to it, But I also realized that I didn't need to wear my sweater at all that day because my body temperature stayed warm. I didn't get as hungry. I didn't nearly fall asleep, which was a bonus thing. But then when I heard the physical effects, I was shocked because I am a relatively healthy, active person. But my blood sugar, my glucose levels were cut in half. My blood pressure dropped by 5 points. I don't have any blood pressure
that's
issues.
That's significant.
Yeah. And also the quality of my work, I rated it as better and improved. So my productivity did not drop. And that was what was shown in the massive study. So we saw that people's fatigue levels dropped by up to 28%. Those who took the most breaks had 28%, but even the minimum, taking a break every 2 hours, saw their fatigue drop by 23%. So pretty significant. We also saw that 80% of those who committed to taking breaks actually were able to stick with it. 82% actually enjoyed taking the breaks. And productivity rose slightly. So I was worried. I was like, people are going to be like, I can't get any work done. But that's not generally what we saw. And then, anecdotally, lots of people talked about their knees not hurting anymore, their back not hurting, their eyes not hurting, that they were more positive, that they didn't hate their job anymore, that they had enough energy that when they got home, they were could play with their kids out in the backyard. Some people lost some weight. Other people worked with their doctors during it and also saw some of those big physiological changes as well.
Wow. No, that is great. Can you address the issue of standing desks and how this relates to what the breaks, really important about the breaks, and also what it is about the body we think the movement's so key?
Yeah. So I was like, people, Keith, everyone's going to be like, well, it's fine. I have a standing desk. And he was like, yeah, I'm so sorry. I have to tell you, standing desks are not the answer. So standing desks are great if they are a way of getting you to move. But it's actually, there have been many studies that have now found that if you stand for 2 hours or plus, it's actually not great for your circulation and can lead to blood clots, varicose veins. So the key thing is stimulating your muscles through movement. And muscles are like sponges, Keith explained to me. And if the sponge has to be stimulated in order to suck out the glucose from your blood and then push it up to the brain along with oxygen so that you can essentially think straight, right? So if you are sitting for hours at a time, it's almost like your legs at your knees and your torso are bent like a garden hose, like kinked like a garden hose. And so we've seen that, and the water backs up, pressure builds. So that's where hypertension comes from. There's no blood flow. And then again, with the glucose, that's crucial for cognitive, not just, for your body and being able to not become pre-diabetic, diabetic, but when you are switching tasks, when you're opening an email and deciding whether to answer it and maybe tweeting something, but then actually checking your texts, all those switches are using glucose, and you use oxygen to burn through that glucose, which leaves behind CO2. Now, when, there's a system up there that clears out the CO2, but if you don't move, then that system starts to slow down. The CO2 builds. You feel foggy. You feel tired. You feel like you can't concentrate. I feel like everyone these days is like, oh, I must have ADHD. And it's like, well, maybe you do. Or maybe you could also get a little more movement into your life and see if that helps.
Exactly. Well, it's interesting. I remember when I bought a standing treadmill for walking and doing exercise. This was years ago. Got motion sick. Thank goodness I could return it, which is not an easy return.
Interesting.
But yeah, I can look at swings and get a little motion sick. But I am completely like you, that I really like exercise. And then this question of, I get into the flow. I'm editing right now the 5th Screenagers movie. And I know as a journalist writer, just that, how do you break that when you're in that flow? And I have been really putting to work what you said about the getting up, and I want to discuss how you're doing it also and what you've seen with other people. But I have found when I have that desire for that little mind break to check the forecast in Seattle or go to my email, I go, oh yeah, it's time. And I will get up and I will particularly walk and sweep, or something that feels good because I'm working at home to do. I love your idea of getting outside. So when I can, I'm trying to walk around a block, and it's going really well. It's not scientific. I'm not doing it every certain time, but it's really giving me permission to do it a little bit more. And I have to say, I do think about the kinked toes, and I am a long-standing person already who puts a ball between my legs and I squeeze inner just to a little exercise there. I'm constantly needing to move, but I can also find myself sitting for long periods of time. So I'm curious how you've brought it into your life.
Yeah, my mom is one of those people who can never sit for long. And I just figured it was genetic and I didn't get that gene. Like I was pretty good at being a slug. But what I've realized is we can train our bodies to crave movement. And that is what we saw with our participants. So in the beginning, no surprise, the number one way that people remembered to take their breaks was by setting a timer, right? But setting it, they had to set it. It couldn't be the Apple Watch because that's too easy to ignore. There had to be an intention and saying to myself, when this happens, I will give this to myself. But by the end of those 2 weeks, many, many people said, actually, I don't need the timer anymore. My body has started to tell me when I need it. So for the book, I sort of get into what is happening there. And there's something called interoception. And interoception is the body telling the brain what it needs, like take off your jacket, you're getting hot and sweaty, or you need a snack, or you need to go to the bathroom. And what happens when we're staring at screens, we are enthralled. Hours go by, and then we look up and we're like, whoa, my left foot is asleep. What happened, right? So this connection, this conversation, the theory is that just kind of gets cut off. But by reintroducing movement, people started to say oh, my back would tell me you got to get up. And that's what happens for me. I'm like an 8-year-old boy. At 45 minutes, I start to squirm. And, when we used to think that was a bad thing, but it's not. It is not a bad thing. So I'm trying to listen to my body. But if I am in flow, and this was another thing that, as I went through all the stories and the data for the book, I saw time and time again that people would say, I get in flow and then I skip my break. And I tell myself that that's okay. And that is what kept people going. The goal is not perfection. The goal is not to hit your mark and kill it, right? This is about a lifetime of feeling good in your body, feeling alive, and movement being something that you get to do instead of what I think it has become for a lot of us, which is something we have to do, check it off the list, go to the gym, phew, glad that's over. And for me, it's really revolutionized the way I think about. I was never a sporty person or that athletic, but I'm a movement person now, and that feels pretty good.
Yeah, I'm going to take a quote at this moment from your book because it's so relevant to what you just said. It's time for a new mindset, one that doesn't treat movement as medicine, punishment, or self-improvement, one that sees it for what it is, the baseline of being human.
Before we dive back in, I wanted to let you know about our 4 Screenagers documentaries, which focus on helping kids and teens navigate the challenges of this digital age. We created these films to be screened in schools and at community events. Over 20,000 hosts have shown them thus far. Along with the movies, we provide discussion guides, promotional materials, and other tools so that you can easily organize a truly impactful event for your community. And if your school wants to use the movies in the classroom, we have options for that too, along with a full curriculum of lesson plans designed for various grade levels. To learn more about the movies or inquire about becoming a host, visit screenagersmovie.com. There's a link in the show notes. Now back to the show.
And your book is full of just wonderful lines, anecdotes, and history and information. I want to turn to the final part of our podcast about parenting around all this. And I think why I wanted to start with how you and I do it is just by definition, when our kids are around, we can not only do this, but we can talk at different times about why we're doing it and the science. And I just wanted to, so that's important. What we just talked about is kind of how we're doing it and why. I want to talk about your son that you gave a survey to. In terms of particularly how do we communicate about movement in general without being those parents you got to go out and exercise or you're on your screen too much.
Totally.
And you've been thoughtful in your book with all sorts of insights into this. I wondered, not to say this survey is something is going to revolutionize things, but it had a little impact, and we're constantly experimenting as parents.
Well, first, I just want to say I really appreciate, Delaney, that you and your guests are not about shaming kids. And I think we have gotten to a point where kids feel like they're being bad whenever they're on a screen. And I don't find that to be, at least in my family, not terribly productive, and from a lot of people I talk to. So, and also, you have a recent episode about this. Instead of focusing on the screens, talking about, well, what should they be doing if they're not on their screens? Let's focus on the positive rather than like, don't do this. How about maybe try this? So this was during the pandemic with my son, who was, I guess he was probably 12 at the time. And he just felt out of sorts, didn't we all, right? You know, we were in a different place for a lot of it. It was confusing. And he, you know, he's a kid. He didn't know like what was going on. So I just said, okay, I'm going to make you a questionnaire that you can fill out every night. And it was like very basic. Did you have like proper meals today? Did you eat snacks? How was your sleep? Did you go for a walk and move around? You know, I even asked about bowel movements, right? Like the whole jammy. And I never actually read what he gave me because I was like, you know, privacy. But I think for him, it was just about, you know, the outside world was so scary and so intense, and there was so much to think about that it was just a way for him to turn in a little bit, think about what was going on with him. Did he notice any patterns? Like when he had a proper breakfast, did that mean that he felt better later? And if he did get a good night's sleep, was he able to, you know, get his schoolwork done? Like just sort of trying to see connections and patterns between how he treated himself physically, and that his body deserved to get good treatment because it made him feel better and it made him happier. It was just that simple. So, you know, he's 18 now, almost 19, can't believe it. But I think for me, like I see it in my kids now. I have a 16-year-old and nearly 19-year-old, and they take themselves out for walks all the time. Like they are like, I'll be back. What time's dinner? I'll be back by then. Mm-hmm. And they go and wander just because that's turned into a thing. We all know we need it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like you mentioned in the book, rather than saying, look, you've been on screens too long or what's going on with the screens, you focus on, hey, have you moved today? Like, what's
totally.
Movement look like? Something like that.
And also, like, did you get to move? You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
I like that.
You know, that's my new thing. It's like, did you get to move today? Because isn't that great when you get to move, as opposed to like, you have to move every day, right? Like,
Perfect.
You got to.
Excellent. Yeah. Really good point.
Yeah.
No, it's exactly that tweak in the way that we talk about things that over time gets absorbed by them to realize.
And I needed to, Delaney. I still needed to. Hey, you get to move. You have a break in your day and you're not in flow. You get a chance to move. Look at you.
Absolutely. And I'm laughing parent to parent. You're the only other parent I've heard who sometimes has been known to exercise a little bit at the airport.
Oh, yeah. It's the worst. They're my kids' worst nightmare.
I know. But you know what? When they are embarrassed by things that we're doing that are actually good, when they become adults, they're less embarrassed to do those types of things in general in their lives. They might not exercise at the airport, but I'm not going to be surprised if my kids don't stretch or do a little something now and then, particularly if you have a long layover or whatever it is. But
I love that this is our legacy.
I do push-ups. I do like triceps on the chair.
Oh, yeah.
I bring bands with me. So I'm just open about it. But
it's so interesting. Everyone is so different, right? I mean, I think about Keith Diaz when I was like, oh, I love tracking my steps. He's like, I can't. It makes me nuts. You will find me lapping around my dining room table before I go to bed to hit a certain number. It doesn't work for me. And
in other words, he would have done that and he wouldn't have liked that pressure on himself.
He would get crazy about it. He wouldn't he wouldn't be able to go to sleep if he hadn't hit like a certain amount. He couldn't be like, oh well, so much for I did the best I could today. Tomorrow's a new day. So for him, it's about like he's like, I feel it in my body when I've gotten enough exercise. And I think I've gotten there too. I now like try to trick myself and be like, guess how many steps you've gotten based on how you feel inside and what you've done today. And I'm getting pretty good, actually. I was like, it's 8,500. Like, and I'm pretty on target. It's my little game with myself. Yeah. But I get it. Like, you know, each to their own. And like, there is no judgment here. Like, if step counting works for you, awesome. If it's not for you, fine.
If a timer works for you to do your breaks, great. If not, I don't track anything. I used to have to run daily. Like exercise can become something that is, and I don't judge people. It's not like, oh, you have an exercise addict or something, but it's almost that our body gets used to and wants it.
Totally,
and I think that's what your movement is about. Like, how do we incorporate more physical movement so that it becomes the norm and we get to appreciate and experience that? Because for me, movement has been crucial in my life. And when in medicine, I still see patients, but for the long training, we often have to do these day-long tests. And from early on, I realized if I go for a little jog at lunchtime, rather than just sit and eat, I'm going to be so much more productive and feel so much better that second half of the testing. And that can look like, wow, she's weird. Why is she jogging? And then I would still eat afterwards. But it really worked for me. And I think your book does a beautiful job about also you can feel self-conscious at work. If you say, look, I got to go out and take a little break. What are your thoughts about helping people to do this in their lives and not feel judged?
Yeah, I mean, or have their teenagers be like, "Oh my God, Mom, sit down." I'm like, what? I'm just gonna walk the concourse. I think I saw a really cute baby down at the end there. Well, okay, being embarrassed definitely is an issue, but honestly, sometimes when I do stretching while I'm waiting to get on a plane, I notice that people watch me, and then inevitably, at least 2 people stand up and start doing it too. Mm-hmm. So I just put my headphones in and I do my stretches, and I kind of peek out of the corner of my eye and I notice that people do it. Honestly, who cares is what I keep thinking. Yeah. Be the weirdo, be a leader when it comes to being in your body. There are tons of people who are crouched, hunched over their phones everywhere else. They probably won't even see you. But if they do, maybe they'll get some inspiration from you as well. Yeah. And what we saw particularly for people in offices and in the workplace was that having a buddy, your accountability buddy, who would be like, I'm going to be weird and take a break. You going to do it too? Totally, that would work. Or integrating it into another habit. We have this morning meeting on Mondays. We always walk when we take it. Or we walk to the coffee shop and walk back. So integrating it into something that just isn't that big of a deal. Or in your Zoom meetings, turn off the cameras and march in place for 5 minutes and then turn them back on. Or not at all. I turn every possible call I can into a walk and talk. Exactly. That is my go-to. Yeah. So, sometimes you have to be a goofball. Other times it does fit into your life in some way. And for kids, I always de-emphasize the movement. And I'm like, let's go check on the Canadian goose to see if they're still in that spot at the end of the block. Destinations are good, checking in on things. And also, I love a good experiment. I feel I'm going to rate myself I'm a 5 before our walk. After our walk, I feel like a 9. That's pretty good. Interesting. Every day is an opportunity for an experiment and figuring out yourself a little better.
Yeah. Kids are the best to do all these different ways of thinking about it. In fact, I have to say, many times when I'm exercising in the airport, kids will come over and start doing it with me. I love that. And it's my favorite. It's definitely my favorite.
So cute.
Yeah. That is leading me ultimately to, there's so much in your book about the science of why this all works. And so I'm going to hold that. I'm hoping we can do another episode to talk about.
Yes, please. This is so fun.
And hearing and all sorts of things that we would love our kids to hear over time. I've done some podcasts on the physical health, but your book touches on a lot of new things that I thought was excellent.
Oh, good. Good. I'm glad you found it useful.
And I have to say, I've recommended in my weekly recommendation your podcast, Body Electric, the whole 2 seasons that goes. Yes. But ultimately, the best is your book. 100%. Your book is fantastic, and I want people to go there. Manoush, what's the best way for them to find everything? We'll have everything in our show notes, but what else should we let people know?
Yeah, I would love to hear from you. What are you thinking about? What have you found that works? If you're trying this out or if you have questions, please, you can find me. My website is Manoush Z, so ManoushZ.com. I'm Manoush Z on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I love hearing from people and about their own experience because oftentimes it like sparks me to figure out the next thing. So if there's also a problem that you're trying to work out, I would love to know.
Oh, that's great, because you say this is all about movement for a movement.
Yes, exactly. I know it's a little corny, but I'm sticking with it.
Oh, well, this is great. So I love that we're calling this part 1, and we will do part 2 another time.
Awesome. Delaney, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
What a gift that you tuned into the show today. The Screenagers podcast and movement is all about learning together how we can best help our youth of all ages, our communities, and ourselves best navigate our rapidly changing digital world. Make sure to follow/subscribe to the podcast to get each episode automatically, and the more subscribers, the easier it is for others to find us. And if you give it a like and write a review, even just one sentence, that helps even more. Check out Screenagersmovie.com to get resources for each episode and loads of other resources. Learn about our 4 Screenagers films and find my weekly parenting blog, Tech Talk Tuesdays. And be sure to use the search bar to find many topics you might be wondering about among hundreds of my past blogs. Finally, I love hearing from you, so email me at Delaney@Screenagersmovie.com. What ideas do you want to hear for future episodes? Today's show was produced by the following people: me, your host, Delaney Ruston, Lisa Tabb, and sound editing was done by Alan Gofinski.